Hey, what's up, everybody? Lawler here, your inside source for all things Rocket League. Lot to cover today between things like Kronovi and Kuxir for the first season ever not being in the RLCS. We've also got stuff along the lines of RLCS Overtime coming back, but not in the way you would think, and much more. But before we get into that, as always, if you guys enjoy the content, give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, all that fun stuff, as well as hit me up on all my social medias, which can be found in the description down below. With that said, let's get right into the video. So first things up, there is going to be some changes to the grid for RLCS. For those that don't know what the grid is during the previous split in fall, not only was there the regional events that happened 3 times plus a major, there was also a 9-week weekly event that went down where 16 teams from respective regions got to play in a Swiss-style bracket and a lot of matches. Basically a whole lot more Rocket League. Well, that's all being revamped, and they're bringing back, as it shows on the screen and what you've probably seen by the thumbnail, in what is called the Grid Overtime, which is essentially a like NFL red zone type style where, because there is 16 broadcasts going on at once, this is going to allow you to tune into just one and probably get that information. But we aren't exactly sure on how it's going to be presented. Those details obviously are going to be something that we'll have to tune in to find out. So they try to promote it and say every match, every result, one stop. And if you can see by the tiling in the background, it is a imaged or a tiled spread of all the different streams that were going on over the course of the grid last season. The difference, though, is that it is going to be on the Rocket League main channel with fan rewards, and we'll get into that as we look at this post. So the first thing is, as you can see, it is saying that the winter split is going to be bringing a whole lot of changes along with it. That includes big changes to RLCS The Grid. As you may have seen, the format has some significant changes, so let's start with a refresher there. And that's pretty much what this post is going to do, is it's going to refresh your guys' minds on the new things that are coming with the grid. In summary, the biggest one is that the grid is no longer 9 weeks long. It is now 4 weeks with 2 days each week. So actually starting this week on Thursday is going to be the first week of North American grid. And what will happen is the 16 teams have been broken up into 4 groups of 4, which I will show you again later. And then those teams will play each other in a round robin. So each team plays each team, but nobody gets eliminated in day number 1 on Thursday. All it is for seeding purposes. These teams are trying to figure out where they line up on the final day. So after every single team plays their 3 matches, the day is over. And that's a little bit better too than last time, because last time there was a chance that you went 0-2 and you were done. So not only are we getting a bigger sample size of every single team more consistently, but the way they're doing the final day, I think I'm a big fan of. On the final day, which I'll also show you guys in Liquipedia when we get to it at the end here, what they're doing is they're just doing a 16-team single elimination bracket, which I'm a big fan of single elimination. Winter split is double elimination, so it's a little bit weird to have that contrast here, but I do like this format quite a bit. So when we get into the final day, which will be on Friday this week, you will see all 16 teams playing at least 1 match, and if you lose, you go home. If you win, you continue on, which is really awesome. But for the analysts and commentators, no confirmation if I'm doing V1 or Galaxy Racer just yet, but for my circumstance, if I'm getting 2 days of pay to be a caster for this and all of a sudden my team comes in and they lose right away, it's like, yeah, it stinks, but it's a good payday, and then we can focus on making the aftermath of it even better. Whether we want to focus on interviews or talking to certain people or kind of that creativity, you may see some more uniqueness to make sure that the companies are getting their time and worthwhile in those days. So you could see some unique content, I think, this time around as teams start to get more comfortable with the grid broadcast. The matches themselves, which I'll touch on again later, will be best of 5s up until the semifinals, where the semifinals and the grand finals will be best of 7s. A link to this post will be in the description down below, so if you guys do have any questions or want to be able to see again when the dates are for the grid. A lot of people were asking me about when regionals were going to be and how this scheduling is going to be for this split. I've covered multiple videos on this, 2 in particular that you can find. I did one about 6 days ago and then another one a couple weeks back. So if you need to know more questions about the schedule, you can go look those up. They should be in the related option as well. The other thing that it teases at the beginning again is Overtime, which is going to be 2 different streams. The first one is going to be by Subpar and HD, which is Cole and Stumpy. They will no longer be covering Endpoints broadcast, which is pretty stinky because they did a really good job over there. And then the North American one will be Nose Dude and Stacks. Obviously Stacks being the more veteran talent. The only time I've casted with Nose Dude was Gnarly, and if you guys want to go back and watch that and make your assumption for yourself, Hopefully, because it is a more laid back environment and it's more of like a looking at clips and all that kind of stuff, Nose Dude can do what he does best, which is talk a bunch of banter and point out some things in some different nuances. It has been a while since we've seen him involved in the scene, but again, that didn't stop Marky Duda or Turtle or anybody else, so we'll see how that one plays out. Also, yesterday that went down was the close qualifiers for Europe. If you didn't get to see it, we had a bunch of different teams that ended up competing, and we're trying to be one of the top four. Top four automatically get into regional event 1, while the other ones go to a last chance bracket, and that's what can make this a little bit complicated. So if you're looking at these, any of the teams in the top here, so Triple Trouble, Rickstad.GG, Gucci Gang, and Trainhard, German team, Gucci Boys. Sounds really weird to say. I think they're going to have to change their name, being completely honest. Rickstad.GG now has Magnus instead of apparently Jack, and then Triple Trouble obviously staying the same. Those are your 4 that automatically qualify, as it shows at the top. So they will be in Regional 1 along with all the other teams that have guaranteed their spots. As for the other teams, Stealth, Singularity, Redemption, Little Whammons, which is a great name, and then all the other teams in the lowers that qualified, these teams will be playing tomorrow to try to figure out if they are going to move forward. Unfortunately, the brackets have not been seeded yet, so we don't know who is playing who or when that is playing out. But again, it's going to be a pretty cutthroat day of Rocket League tomorrow as well. If you guys want to, over at twitch.tv/Lawler, link in the description down below. Come hang out with us. We talk about this daily. We'll be able to kind of keep you guys up to date on what's going on. If I stream, usually I take Tuesdays off, but you never know. The biggest things that I'm pretty sad about, obviously with Kronovi in his TLDR, in his twit longer that he put out, was the fact that he is going to be grinding and trying to find a new team eventually in the next split for spring. So he will not be playing. This is the first time since Season 1 Kronovi will not be involved. On the other side of that, like I said in the preview of this video, Kuxir is also no longer involved. His team Swag ended up getting knocked out pretty early. They ended up losing to Singularity, as you can see highlighted. They ended up dropping then down to the lower bracket, as you can see highlighted, against You Choose Peace, and lost that in an 0-3. So this is Kuxir also last minute finding and trying to scrape together a team with Flakes, and it doesn't work out. They ended up playing with Rezi instead of Ease, and ended up getting knocked out there. So Kuxir, for the first time as well since the inception of RLCS, will also not be competing, which is a pretty weird feeling, being completely honest. And last but not least, obviously I mentioned the grid a lot, and kind of just touching on this again, if you guys are trying to stay informed with how this plays out or what's going on, the best thing I can do is if you go to Liquipedia, as always, where I get all the information, links to this will be in the description down below. You can find all the teams that are playing now that the closed qualifiers and everything have been solidified, and this is where you see the breakdown. So you've got 4 groups of 4. This is kind of a, I don't actually really know how they decided these groups based upon placement. From the looks of it, if you take these teams based upon where they are in the results, they may have split them that way. I'm sure Gibbs has a reason. I'm sure I could break this down as well and find out like who's the 1 seed, the 16 seed, and stuff like that to figure out. Gibbs usually swaps the high and lows and then the middle one. So like 8 and 7 usually swap too. So if you get a perfect bracket, they don't like come across each other and stuff. There's actually reasons to it. So I'm sure Gibbs has some thoughts into this. But Group C looks like a group of death. That looks absolutely horrible. But again, I think the exciting thing about this, as it shows, these teams will all play each other at least once. We'll get 3 matches out of every single roster. So if you are going to support an individual team, you will get to consume a lot of it in a day. Normally, obviously, the best you would get is like 2 games from your team that you enjoy from previous RLCS. So for the grid, you know, when they do it every other week for your region, you're going to be able to tune in and get at least, you know, 3 hours of content, which is pretty awesome. I think that's a really cool way for the teams that do get kind of O2'd and they're out right away. Because Psyonix is enabling these organizations to put on their own broadcasts, I think it's a really good balance and a really good way to kind of handle that short broadcast day for them. So this is all going to happen. Like I said, all these matches in the group stage, the ones that show here, will be done on Thursday. That'll be the first day. After that's done, after we figure out how well or how poorly they do, they will then seed them in a playoff bracket, and that'll happen on Friday. And then we'll see them play out, single elimination, do or die, which is kind of awesome. So I'm actually a really big fan of this format. I love seeing the evolution of what RLCX is becoming week in and week out, and from split to split, because it just seems like they're slowly refining it. And that was always an issue I had with Psyonix in the past, especially when I was casting for them, is like changes like formats and rule sets and stuff just took forever to implement because they had to go through legal department and all that kind of stuff. And now they're just like, yep, new format. We need to change this up. This is for the better. We're doing it. And then it just so happens to exist shortly after. So big fan of the way that they're progressing and refining these formats, because I do think it is going to give us the best teams when hopefully COVID goes away and we do get a live environment in a LAN. So pretty excited for this this fall split. We got some new teams coming in. Obviously some familiar faces, but a lot of the teams that are not in the top 4, top 5, top 6 teams have a new selection of players. It is a brand new roster for some of them, but ultimately there is going to be a lot of focus. For me personally, obviously on V1, I want to see how Com's going to play. Rogue, you got Taroko. There's a bunch more in here that could be interesting, and we've had some results from like Ghost and United and stuff, and kind of makes me wish that some of these like Rogue would have signed up for the WSOE qualifiers, but again, trying to figure things out with those rosters last minute because of the short trade window. So with that said, that is going to wrap up the video for today. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, as always, drop those in the comments down below, and I'll do my best to get back to them in a timely fashion as well. If you enjoy the content, thumbs up, hit subscribe, turn on notifications. Getting towards 30K. That is the new goal for the end of the year. We've already smashed the 25K sub goal, which is greatly appreciated, but that does it for me, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Peace.